All right, we're going to get started. Thanks again, everyone, for coming. Hope you get a lot of value out of this webinar. So, cash. Cash is important. Cash is the lifeblood of a business. Cash is what takes care of you, takes care of your family. Cash is what takes care of your team and their families. Cash is really important. So, this webinar is all about how to maximize your cash and how to create additional cash through having efficient operations. And I hope you get a lot of value because we're going to give you quite a few great tools that you can use and think about in trying to figure out how to create more cash. I want this to be an interactive webinar. So if at any point you guys have a question or a comment or something you want to share, please just jump in. Happy to take questions or want to hear any thoughts you guys have. All right. So my name is Warren Sager. I'm one of the business coaches here at Assured Strategy, and I'm also a certified scaling up coach. These are the books that a lot of our foundational coaching comes from. But of course, through years and years of experience coaching and doing other business things, we have lots of experience, myself and the rest of our team have. So that's where a lot of our great content and tools are going to come from today, this and all the other stuff that we've done. So what is scaling up? There are four decisions to scaling up within a business. The four big buckets are strategy, execution, people, and cash. And there's so much that goes into each one of these areas of decisions and methodologies to improve your business. But today we're going to talk about cash. So I'm going to jump right into a tool. That's what we're here to do, is to learn how we can maximize our cash and be more efficient within our business. So this is one of our favorite tools called the Start, Stop, Keep tool. Most of the tools you're going to see that we show you here and that we have in our library of tools actually are very simple to think about, but way more impactful in terms of how you can use them and get value out of them. So this tool is simple. We're going to think about what things as a business we should start, what things we should stop, and what things we should keep. And the key here is what I have on this right-hand side, which is ask your team what we should be doing. So my first little tidbit of knowledge for today is you as a leader and your leadership team obviously know a lot about your business, but the perspective you have is different than the line staff, the people that are doing the day-to-day work with your customers are, and they have such intimate knowledge of what's going on within the business, and you want to ask them for their knowledge and information. If you ask them the right questions, they have most of your answers. And we don't have time for this today, but the other group of people that has a lot of answers to what you need to know, your customers. So that's for another webinar, but today we're going to focus on your employees. They have a lot of knowledge, and this tool will help bring that knowledge outside of your employees and into your awareness so you can help make the best business decisions. So real simple. Hey, what should we start doing? There are things that every day we know we should be doing, and maybe we're not. And if you ask the right people this question, you'll get a really good bit of feedback. And remember, everything you hear doesn't mean you have to do it, but you ask enough times to the right people, you're going to get enough pattern or good gut nuggets of information that's going to be really helpful. What should we keep doing? Listen, things that work, important to focus on what's working and make sure we don't stop doing what's working. You say, when I say that, you probably laugh and go, oh, we don't do that. But again, as a coach, we see this all the time. Something is working really well, and for whatever reason, we stop doing it. So reminding ourselves the things that are really working and we need to stop doing, we keep doing it. But the most powerful one here is what should we stop doing? And that's why I want to leave this one for last. There are so many times we're doing things that are not in the best interest of our team, not in the best interest of our customer, or we're just wasting time doing something that really maybe isn't crucial for the operation. And so if we ask ourselves, what should we stop doing? Because so many times, our resources are limited. We can't do everything. Most companies say that, they're a little tight on staffing. They're not overstaffed, they're more understaffed. There's only so many hours in the day and so much you can do to help your customers. So you don't want to waste time doing something that maybe is not serving your customer well or really supporting your operation. So the big question here is, what should we stop doing? So I challenge you to take that question back to your team, have conversations about it, and come up with some things that you should stop doing. Hey, guess what happens when you stop doing something? It costs less to do whatever it is that you do as a business. And that increases your ability to have better operations and more cash. So, Start, Stop, Keep, a great simple tool to use to help you save cash. I want to share with you a crazy little story about what you can happen here. So one of our coaches way back when was working on a project with a casino, and they were noticing that their revenue was down in the casino, and they wanted to help figure out what was going on. Well, so he goes out and they do all the normal things you would do. You would be, looking at the operation and going through the numbers and understanding the programs and your processes, all these great things. And they really didn't at that moment have really the answers to what might answer the question, why is our casino revenue down? So then one day he's standing by the bar in the casino and he's chit-chatting with the bartender. And the bartender says, "Hey, what you doing here? I've seen you kind of walking around talking to folks." And the coach said, "Hey, I'm here to find out why the revenue is down in the casino." And the bartender said, "Oh, well, nobody asked me. I know why the revenue is down." And he goes, "Well, okay. I'm so sorry I didn't think to ask you. Please share with me why the revenue is down." And he said, "Well, here at the bar, they said we should stop giving out peanuts." And the coach looked and said, "Okay, keep going. I need to understand more." He goes, "Well, it's really simple. Okay. At the bar, when people eat peanuts, what happens? Oh, yeah, the salt in the peanuts gets you thirsty, right? And when people are thirsty, what do? Oh, they drink more. Aha. And when they drink more, what do? They gamble more. Aha. So some bean counter in the corporate office for the casino said, "Hey, we could save $2,000 a month by, eliminating peanuts from the bar. Probably won't have a big effect, and that'll be two more $1,000." So they stopped giving the peanuts away, and it actually had a huge impact. So long story short, they went ahead and put the peanuts back at the bar, and the numbers went back up to where they were before. Problem solved. And they didn't couldn't believe that it was simple as asking the right question to the right person. Now, in this case, it was to unstop something that they'd already stopped, but you get the idea. There's power in the people in the field who actually deal and see your customers every day. So take that story and this tool to heart and figure out what things you should start, stop, and keep doing to help make sure your business is running effectively, which will increase your cash. All right, let me pause for half a second, get a drink of water, and say, does anyone have any quick questions that they want to share? Throw them in the chat or unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. Okay, moving on. So another tool that we have is the typical waste tool. And again, all this tool is designed to do is ask questions and create conversations. Where are you not being efficient in your processes, or which processes aren't working? And you can't just ask that generally. So the whole purpose of this tool is to kind of break down the different ways that you might have some inefficiencies, and you could talk about them individually. So for example, defects. Are you delivering your product perfectly fine, the first time? Because if you are, then it's on the green side, right? 100% quality delivered. And if you have a problem or a mistake, or you got to redo something, or you got to go out for a second call out, or whatever that might be, well, that increases your defect rate. Guess what? That costs more money, reduces the cost that you have, because the customer's probably paying the same amount if you come once and deliver it perfectly, or you come up 2 or 3 times. So that just keeps reducing your gross profit margin. Delays, no delays, same kind of thing. The faster you're able to deliver your product or service, the better you'll be able to do so at a lower cost to you, and therefore a higher gross profit dollar margin. Having the right people versus not utilizing your team in the right way. This is one probably a lot of companies do focus on, just because it's really expensive, right? People are your most valuable asset, but they're also probably one of your biggest costs. So you want to look at, are you maximizing your biggest asset, your people? Are you utilizing your talent in the best way? Do you have the right people in the right jobs? So many times people get put in jobs because of just circumstances. They're there, they want it, maybe they don't want it, but you need them to do it. And at some point, you need to reflect and say, maybe I got the wrong person in this job because they're not performing at the highest level. And why would that be? Maybe it's because it's really not in their wheelhouse of skills, or they're just not passionate about it. So sometimes it's good to look at your whole team and say, are we utilizing our talent, our people in the best way? So please keep that in mind. Production control, that's inventory. Are you doing just-in-time inventory? Are you letting your inventory stack up? Are there gaps in your inventory, which is slowing down your production process? And when I say that, I'm talking about people or physical goods. It's all thought about the same in terms of your processes. So overall, do you have an operational flow of your processes that are right? When was the last time you looked at your processes, and are they really serving you? Are they maximizing the flow of your team and your operations so you can be more efficient with your expense and therefore increase your cash? And then this last one here is whoops, sorry. Last one here is really valuable. You got to be think about what your customer really, really needs. And are you giving them the best value of what they need? Not always what they want, because they'll want you to death, but what they really need. And know that you're putting your time, energy, focus, your team on the best value for your customer. Not delivering too much, but not delivering too little. Just the value that they're expecting for what they're paying for. And therefore, again, efficient use of your resources to maximize your cash and profit. So all I'm saying here is, again, this is another tool of a sheet to go by and kind of ask yourself these questions internally within the leadership team, maybe the broader team, and say, hey, how are we really doing on these categories? And I think you'll find probably a lot of nuggets of good value for saving money. And that money you save can be invested and used in lots of other ways. So you want to have improved cash, look at where your wastes are within your organization. This is a great tool to do so. Okay. So we talked about how you should be thinking about and talking about waste and being more efficient with your operation. But I just want to share with you in theory what's really going behind the scenes that most people know, but maybe you're not thinking about as clearly as you need to. And this whole idea of profitability is important. If you look at this triangle, you have profitability, growth, and liquidity. So liquidity is the cash, right? The cash you need to support your operation, to support the growth. Where does that that liquidity come from? Profitability. You have to create a business where it generates profits. The profits is that's generating the cash. The cash is the foundation to support the growth. Then the growth fuels more profitability, and you hopefully build this cycle. Profitability creates liquidity. Liquidity creates more growth. Growth creates more profits. Profits create more cash. And you're going up, up, up. It's an amazing spiral and very powerful when you get this spiral going in the right direction. Some companies that do that really well: Apple, Google, right? Tremendous profitability, creates tremendous amount of cash. And what do they do with that cash? They could do all sorts of amazing things, invest it, and then create more growth, which creates more profits. But of course, you've probably seen lots of companies that are doing the opposite. If you don't have the profitability you need, you're not creating the cash. Now you've got limited resources, you're making tough decisions, it gets really hard, and then you're not focused on growth, you're focused on more survival, and that's not a healthy place to be. Sometimes people ask at this point, so what is a healthy level of profit? So I want to share that with you because it's really important, and maybe people don't know this and really think about it like they should. If your business is producing a net profit of 10% or lower, 10% or lower net profit, that is survival profit. 10%, single digits profit is just survival. You're staying in business, you're paying your bills, but by no means are you creating the real cash you need to grow your business. And you are possibly one economic disaster or one mistake within your own organization from going out of business. It's that really, touch and go under 10%. So if your profit is less than 10%, you got to really be careful. So a healthy profit is 15%. So once you're getting 15% profit, that should generate liquidity. And that liquidity starts that growth cycle that we were talking about. Once you get 20% and higher, amazing. That means you're probably a world-class business really operating at the highest level, doing a lot of the things that we're talking about here in this webinar using the tools that we're showing you. So that's fantastic. But keep in mind, companies that produce over 20% profit, two things tend to happen. One is you get a little lackadaisical because you're like, yeah, we're good. Everything's good. We're doing great. Well, you think that you're doing great, you get a little complacent, and something bad's going to happen because you're taking your foot off the gas. So that's one thing to worry about if you're, exceedingly with great profits. The other thing that happens is a company that's creating tremendous profit. Other people are going to recognize that too, and they're going to probably jump in trying to undercut you and your value and pricing because they see profits for themselves. So the goal here is you would like to keep around 15% profit, and that profit helps fuel the cash and the growth of the business. Okay, any thoughts or questions? Okay, moving on. So we already talked about ways to be talking about and getting with your team to figure out how you can improve your cash position. Now we're going to look at actually how you can accumulate more cash through this cash acceleration cycle. And it's real simple. For every dollar you spend out of your business, you want it to come back to you with profit as quickly as possible. So if you spend $1 today, all right, I was talking about the cash acceleration cycle. And in the cash acceleration cycle, the idea is you want your dollars to return to you as quickly as possible. And you need to be thinking about, we're back. And since James is not here, hopefully we're good to go. So I didn't know who jumped in to say that, but thanks again. So cash acceleration cycle. The idea here is you want your dollars to return to you as quickly as possible. There are typically 4 cycles within the cash acceleration cycle, right? When you are starting to sell your product, there's a sales cycle, there's a production cycle where you're making it, then you have to deliver it, and then you have to bill it and get paid for it. And at every part of that process, there is ways that you could be smarter and tighter with how you do it. If your normal sales cycle is 90 days and you could somehow be more effective in your communication with your target, could you to 60 days? Hey, if you did that, you'd actually start the process of the sale 30 days faster. Make production, that's obviously in terms of delivering the product or service, you want to shorten that up. Delivery, of course, is getting it delivered. The one that most people focus on is billing and payments because that's very visible. They say, oh, well, hey, we want to, we're sending out an invoice. We want to get paid right away. And for those of you that are, over 30 days plus in getting your money from when you invoice, that's really something you need to work on. But there are ways to tighten that up. And we've got lots of little tricks that we work with clients on how to do so. But what you want to do is, again, you want to look at these individually. How can we improve our sales? Can we shorten our cycle time? Can we eliminate mistakes? Or can we change something in our business model in order to do that in a more effective way? So you want to do that with each one of these steps. And if you as a leadership team go through this tool and just kind of ask these questions, usually you'll find a lot of time and a lot of money in helping increase this cycle of cash coming back in. Quick story. So Dell Computers, a big computer company. Back in the day, how they used to do business is they would make a bunch of computers, put them on a shelf, and then they try to sell them either themselves or through their distributors. And then they had this great idea, hey, what if we customize computers for people? And sure enough, instead of having to build computers and then put them on the shelf and then sell them, they actually took pre-orders for people to customize computers and took payment for those pre-orders up front. Then they built the computers to spec for the customers, and then they shipped it out. They got paid, instead of having to wait 90, 120 days for their money, they got paid 30, 60 days before the money came in. All right, I don't think I'm sharing again. What happened? So important to be thinking about ways that you can save on your whole process. All right, I think that's good with the cash acceleration tool. Any questions? All right, so this is the next most powerful tool. It's called the Power of One. There's actually a software that backs this up where we can take all of your financials and put it into the tool. And then after I describe how this tool works, we can kind of manipulate the numbers, live and in person and kind of see what happens. It's really fun and exciting to see when you make certain changes to your business, how it affects your cash and profitability. But the main goal here on this tool is to know that there are 7 levers as a leader in a business that you can pull to improve your profitability and cash. So you're like, oh, I want to improve my profitability cash. What can I do? Well, this is exactly what you can do, in addition to all the other things we talked about. So how do you increase profit and cash? Well, one is you could raise your prices. Sure, you can. Can you raise your prices 100%? You could. Would you lose business? You would, but how much? So if you increase your prices 1%, what would happen? 2%, 3%. So if there's any ability, if you have any price elasticity to raise your prices, and if nothing else would change with your customer base or your volume, that would actually bring dollars directly to your gross profit line, directly to the bottom line. So price increases, is a way to increase your cash and profitability. But it does come at a dark side. The more you do it, at some point, it's going to affect your customers. So you got to be very careful. But it's a great way to increase your cash and profitability. And I would argue that more companies are probably more scared to raise prices than to push too hard to raise prices. So this is really an important conversation to have, what could happen if you raise prices. Quick story. One of the companies that I owned back in the day was an e-commerce company. We were strictly online, and we wanted to see how elastic our prices were. Now, the interesting thing was, even before we started this process, we knew we were not the price leader. You could find the products we were selling, which were pretty much commodity products, in a lot of other places for less than what we were selling them for. But we had a really great reputation, good marketing, good service, all the other things that create value. Because if you just are trying to win on price, that's a tough way to do business and make profits. So we built lots of other ways we could create value. So we raised our prices 1%. The cool thing about e-commerce online businesses is everything is measurable and trackable. So we watched our traffic, our conversion rate, drop cart rate, all the things that would help us see what's really going on behind the scenes. 1% price change. You know what happened? Nothing happened. Everything basically stayed the same. We increased our margin by 1% and our profit by 1%. Woohoo! Yay us. So we said, all right, we did that, by the way, for a month. So enough time to really see what would happen. Second month, we said, well, if 1% didn't change anything, what would happen if we did 2%? So we changed our pricing by another 1% for the second month. And guess what? Nothing happened again. Crazy. No impact on our business. So then we decided the third month, of course, what would we do? We'd push our luck. We went and did another percent. Well, guess what? That's when we hit the line. We noticed a drop in our conversion rate, our drop cart rate after things went down. So we said, okay, that was too much. It affected us more. The gross profit we would have gained from the 1% was less than the loss in volume because of the lost conversion rate. So we went back to the 2%, and that's where we left it. But we were able to increase our margin of profitability by 2%. And remember, the difference between healthy profit is 10% or lower or 10% above. So if you're at 8% profit, if you were able to change your pricing and go up 2%, well, now that gets you closer to, a healthy profit range. So it can have a huge impact. But again, remember, the offset is, how does it affect your customer and value? So if you want to raise prices, you got to show the value to your customer so they'll feel comfortable doing so. Otherwise, they're going to leave. Okay, so price increase. That's one of the main levers you can to affect profit and cash. Second is volume increase. Well, obviously, the more you sell, the more profit you should have and increasing your cash. But remember, when you increase volume, that takes more materials, more time, more energy, more wear and tear. So for every dollar of price increase, if it doesn't affect your customer, it's $1 to the bottom line. For every dollar volume increase, it maybe only affects your bottom line and cash 10%, 20%, maybe 30%. So it's impactful, but not as strong as price increase. But you do want to grow, your volume. And that's the frustrating thing when people, are feeling a little stressed and they're like, ooh, I need to we're not where we want to be. I'm feeling a little unsure. We got to pump up the volume, guys. We got to sell more. We got to sell more. the reality is selling more might not actually be helpful because how much it really affects your business and what it really brings in profit and cash might not be worth it. So the gut feeling of just we got to sell more to be more successful is not always the case. In fact, I'll share another quick story. So again, using myself as the guinea pig, my first company when I was a young entrepreneur right out of business school, my goal was to just sell more. Hey, the more you sell, the more you're going to make, right? I was selling the crap out of my products. I was having record sales. I was selling, selling, selling. And I literally sold myself out of business. How does that happen? It actually happens more than you think. I didn't have the best value proposition, so I was selling at a pretty low margin. I didn't have the capital and cash and resources to really support that level of sales. I didn't have enough inventory to support it, and I literally grew myself out of business. It certainly happens, and it happened to me. So volume increase, another great way to improve profit and cash, but again, keep in mind there's some limitations there. So cost of goods reduction. Another great way to improve your profitability and cash is to reduce your cost of goods. How do you do that? Well, you can go to your vendor partners and negotiate better deals. You can do, 1% 10 net 30 kind of better terms, and that extra terms actually get you better discounts if you have the cash to be able to pay it to get those kind of discounts. Could you buy from a new vendor or distributor and get lower pricing? Could you buy in bulk and get better pricing? Could you be more efficient in your way you do your products and services to lower your cost of goods? Back to the waste tool or the start, stop, keep tool. If you can operate your business in a more effective way, you can absolutely lower your cost of goods. And that doesn't affect your customer as long as you're delivering the same product or service. It just goes to increase gross profit, increase cash. So cost of goods is a great way to work on improving your profit and cash. And then the fourth one that's within the P&L side of this is overhead reduction. And that's just reducing your expenses. And again, going back to those other tools, start, stop, keep, and the waste, how do you just stop spending money on things that you don't need? So how often are you combing through your P&L, looking at all your expenses and nitpicking them all to death, doing a real inventory? Hey, why am I spending this much here? What's going on there? Hey, is it time to reshop my phone plan or my cell phone bill? Or are we really, using enough of the whatever that we should be paying for? So you really should take some healthy audits on your expenses and figure out, is there any way to lower them? If you're not doing that, I promise you're leaving money on the table. If you can start doing it every single month, when you get to maybe the third or fourth month, you might stop finding ways to, find little nuggets of dollars that you can save. And then maybe you want to then go every quarter or so to kind of look at it and make sure nothing new pops up. But in those first few months of going through that P&L, you will usually find lots of dollars. So on the P&L side of things, the first four are all on the P&L side of the business, right? Profit and loss statement. You could increase prices, increase volume, reduce your cost of goods, reduce your expenses. If you do any of those or the combination thereof, you will improve your profitability and cash flow. Okay, so on the balance sheet side, which are the remaining three, it says debtor days, creditor days, stock days, but all we're talking about is receivables, payables, and inventory. If you reduce your inventory, but still able to meet the needs of your customer, those dollars turn in cash. All the dollars you got tied up in inventory, that's a lot of dollars. And so tighten it up, improves your cash position. Receivables. You want to make sure you're collecting the money you're owed. How many of you have tons of dollars tied up in receivables? And especially if they're over 30 days, God forbid they're over 90 days, those are dollars that should be in your bank account and they're in in your customer's bank account. It's totally not acceptable. So you need to collect those dollars and you need to make sure you see what it is and make a plan to do it. A lot of times, the reason you're not collecting on time is an efficiency in your collections process. Are you invoicing clearly? Are you invoicing properly with the right number? So people say, oh yeah, I owe this. It's not in dispute. There's no questions. Are you following up and making sure you're getting paid? So you got to make sure you get paid and you get paid sooner rather than later. So put effort into it and get that under control because those are just dollars sitting out there that should be in your bank account. Now, on the flip side, I'm talking about you need to get paid from your customer as soon as possible. But on the flip side of that, payables, money you owe your vendors, well, I'm going to say this lightly. If you slow pay a little bit, every dollar that you keep that you don't pay your vendors is a dollar that's in your bank account. So you want to, make sure you pay in a way that's in the best interest of both parties. But the longer you pay, the more dollars it keeps in your pocket. Obviously, again, everything has its pros and cons. If you pay too slow, then you become a bad customer to your vendor partner, and then maybe they're not going to go bend over backwards for you because you're a slow payer. So keep that in mind. But if you slow pay a little bit, it really does help. Listen, not saying you should do this by any means, but this is what all the big guys are doing. If you did business with Walmart or Amazon or any of the big boys out there, they're at 90, 120 days like that. They don't even pretend like that's in their contract. We're going to pay you 120 days after you give us the goods. And they do that because they can. And they know that those dollars in their bank account, add up. And those adding up dollars affects cash flow and profitability in a tremendous way. So really, really, really important that you focus on how you can increase, your cash with your making sure you receive your payables and not pay too much on increase your receivables and not pay on your payables. Some businesses I know are so proud of the fact that like they get a bill and they want to pay it the same day. And okay, if it makes you sleep better at night and you feel more comfortable doing so, please do it. But if you got 30-day terms and you're paying on day one, you're really not doing the best thing you could do for the cash flow of your business. So just keep that in mind. And if you have so much cash flow that you're doing it and it's not affecting you, hey, more power to you. Good for you. That's great. But these 7 levers tremendously affect profitability and cash flow. So if you guys can spend time having conversations around these 7 things, and then here, let me share with you what happens. So this is an example of a screenshot of one of these, that we do with the live numbers of a company. But you can see here that this company starts with having $843,000 worth of net cash flow and a profit of $2 million. We made some here. We didn't change pricing at all. That was what was not decided was the best course of action, but we did increase volume by 2%. We reduced costs down by 2%. So look at this. Volume. Volume was increased by 2%. What did it affect cash flow? $51,000 and profit $264,000. Hey, that's great. And by the way, you can see that cash and profit don't always go hand in hand. The profit went up 5 times how it impacted cash. So if you let's say we just did this volume increase, forgetting about the other numbers. Hey, we increased our volume by 2%. Our profit is up 264,000. Man, we must be killing it. No, profit doesn't mean cash dollar for dollar. You improved your profit by 264, but you only improved your cash by 51,000. Where did the other, 200,000 plus dollars go? It went into the cost of goods and the expenses and the overhead to operate to increase that volume by 2%. So that's why I was saying that it's powerful to increase volume, but it doesn't necessarily increase your cash as much as you think it does. And that's why if you kept increasing this number, you keep thinking, wow, look at all this I'm making. So here's a slogan we love. So this will help make this point clear. Revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity, but cash is king. So revenue is vanity. Yeah, we're up $10 million. We do have a $10 million business. You know what? That's just vanity because a $10 million business, if you're not making any money, I'd rather have a $1 million business that was profitable than a $10 million business that isn't. So revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity. Like you got to actually make profit because remember we talked about on that triangle, profit should create the cash that helps fuel the growth. But like you see here, right? 264 in profit. Oh, we're killing it. No, that's only 51,000 in cash. So be careful. Profit and cash are not the same thing. But look at and then of course, cash is king because cash is the most important thing. You need cash to grow. You need cash to support your business. So make sure the bottom line is you have cash. In entrepreneurial circles, people do talk about, oh, I've got a $10 million business. I have this, I have that. Unfortunately, profit and cash is, uncomfortable to have conversations about. But what I wish people would do is say, man, my business had, $1 million in net, or our bank account, we keep $2 million in cash in the bank because we create a lot of cash. Those are really what people should be excited about and proud of, not just how big your business is. So be focusing on the right number. And it really is the cash first, then the profits that generate the cash, and ultimately then the growth, the revenue. And again, back to that cycle. Okay, so what's happening here in this cost of goods? Look at this. So you reduce your cost of goods by 2%. So let me ask you guys, do you think it's possible that you can reduce your cost of goods by 2% by either being more efficient with what you do with inside your business, or getting with vendors, or negotiating better pricing, or getting a new vendor, or doing something different? 2% in this business. If he reduced his cost of goods by 2%, he increased his cash flow and profit almost equally, almost $1 million. That's huge. $1 million. They went from a $2 million business then to a $3 million business. That's really huge. And in a business, if you one day they wanted to sell it and you were selling, let's say 4 times EBITDA, well, now that's not $1 million. Now that generated $4 million in extra money for the sale of the business to the owner. That's huge. What created all that? Oh, we were 2% better in how we produced our cost of goods. So that's why I'm sharing with you. There's so much power in these numbers. They're not insignificant, even with small percentages. Now, again, this is what this company's numbers pulled together. We know if we did your company, the numbers would be different, but it's really powerful. So here they also reduced their cost, their overhead, their expenses by 1%, another $112,000. But when times get tough, companies, one of the things they do is we got to cut expenses. And I hope you can see cutting expenses really does help. It really does. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but you cut expenses 1%. And so obviously if you cut expenses 2%, that number would probably double. So 200,000 expense reduction brought in $200,000 in profit and cash. But a 2% cost of good reduction created $1 million. Where should you put your time and energy? Trying to nickel and dime the expenses, or trying to figure out how to reduce your costs? Well, I hope you see reducing your costs has way more impact on your business. So put your efforts where you're going to get the most return. And in this case, it would be cost of goods reduction. Now, I think you would have found if this company had increased their prices by 2%, it would also be, very, very profitable and have a huge impact on their cash and bottom line. So what else did this company do here? They reduced their receivables by 2 days. 2 days. Instead of getting paid in 32 days, they got paid in 30. Or instead of getting paid in 30, they got paid in 28, whatever it was. It didn't affect profits, right? Because getting paid for money you've already expecting is not going to affect your profitability. It just affects cash in your bank. But in this case, this business just collected 2 days faster. 2 days, $329,000. I mean, that's huge. That's a lot of dollars. They only had $843,000 of cash flow before. So this almost increased their cash flow by 50% because they were a little bit more effective in collecting their money. So if you don't have somebody who's really focused on receivables and collecting those dollars, think about how much money is out there. And would it be worth spending money on somebody coming in to the business to work on that for you? Even if you had to outsource it and pay somebody for it, or have somebody part-time in your business that did it, huge dollars in a lot of companies. So I hope you're looking at where your receivables are and what you can do to collect. And then, of course, inventory, again, doesn't affect profit, but it affects cash. You lower your inventory. The measurement that a lot of folks look at for inventory is inventory turns. So let's say you did $1 million in business a year, and you keep about $200,000 worth of inventory. So that means on an annual basis, you turn your inventory 5 times, right? $200,000 of inventory times 5 is $1 million. So you would turn that inventory 5 times. So the question would be, hey, is there any way to tighten it up so you can do it in six turns instead of 5 turns? The more you can turn that inventory, the more cash it's going to create for your business. Not going to affect your profitability, but it affects your cash flow and cash in the bank. So again, look at your inventory. And if you have inventory that is dead, inventory that's been sitting around for a while that you haven't sold, then you should put it into cash. How do you do that? Dump it. Because if it's sitting there and you think it's worth $100, but it's been there for 3 years, yeah, it's not worth $100. It's $100 stuck that's not giving you any value. Turn it into cash, and even if it's $10 now you can do something with those $10. You think it's worth 100. It sounds good being on your balance sheet as inventory worth 100. Yay, but it's not really serving you or your business. So you want to turn your inventory, increase your inventory turns, and make sure you're maximizing that. And again, they didn't do anything with payables here, but that would also affect their cash. So I hope you could see the power in going through this exercise and looking at ways to make minor changes in your business, having huge impact on your cash and profitability. So play with this on your own. We're happy to engage with you if you're interested in working with us on this exercise and using the software to help you do that. But using live numbers and playing, hey, if we increased our prices by 10%, let's guesstimate how much we'd have to lose before that was a negative factor in terms of cash and profit. So those are kind of the scenarios you can kind of play out. But even without the software, I know you guys can have really healthy conversations just sitting down in a room with some numbers and discussing, hey, what can we really impact here and how's that going to improve our cash and profit? Remember, revenue is just vanity. Profit is sanity and cash is king. And this helps you think about how you can improve both of those things. All right. Any questions or comments about what we've talked about so far? All right.
Warren, there were a question earlier from Deep on profit is after you've paid yourself.
Thank you. I did not see that. Thank you. All right. So great question. Thank you for bringing that up because I wanted to share a story about how this needs to work. So many business owners, the idea is they want as much profit in the business. But the reality is, as a business owner, if you have an active role in the business, then you should get paid for that role. You have two hats, right? If you're an owner, you are the owner, you wear the owner's hat, but you're also the CEO or the operations manager or the lead salesman or whatever it is that role that you play. And so you need to make sure that the business pays you for the role that you play. And then it's showing true operational profit and cash for what the business is doing with somebody in that role. And why this is important is you don't want to mislead yourself, even as the owner, to think that you're doing better than you are. Because if you pay yourself under market rate, which a lot of owners do, and then they go, oh, but look, we made 200,000. Well, no, you didn't, because you only paid yourself $30,000 for a job that should have been 100, and that 70,000 difference would affect your profitability. So pay yourself for what you're actually worth. It makes a huge difference. Now, also keep in mind, if one day you have got this big goal that you want to sell your business, they're going to pay based on, again, what's real. So they'll look at how much you get paid and they'll adjust for market. So if you think your business is worth $1 million but you only paid yourself $50,000 and you really should be paying yourself 150, well, they'll adjust that 100 out and it'll affect your profitability anyway. So you're really not helping yourself by not creating really clean numbers that make sense for your business. So all these numbers then should reflect the right profit numbers with the owner's salary coming out at the right numbers. Pay yourself market rate for what the job really entails. And if you're not sure what that is, if you have a good CPA, they could absolutely help you with that. You ask them and they have some numbers that they can share with you that'll tell you within your industry what the going rate is for your size of business. So Deep, I hope that answers your question. All right, do we have any other questions that popped in the chat here? Let me check real quick. All right. All right, well, I'm going to start towards wrapping things up. If you have questions, I'm going to leave a few minutes at the end, so please throw them in the chat and I'll get to them. So listen, guys, I hope I share with you lots of great things that will really help your business. We do these webinars and on a regular basis, and they're all free. We want to help you. That's what this is all about, sharing knowledge and information to help you with your businesses. So we've got some webinars coming up. They're here. We've also got some workshops coming up. Workshops are a full day. So if you think you get a lot of value out of 1 hour of talking to one of the coaches like me, imagine what would happen if you came for a full day of learning and seeing lots of tools and thoughts on how you can work on really scaling and growing a business in a healthy, profitable way. So we've got a couple coming up here in Texas. That's where I'm located. We've got one in San Antonio in December 10th. So that's just around the corner. Please sign up. April 8th in Dallas. We're going to be up in Boston. And then here's our webinars. So go to our website here at the bottom and sign up for all of our events. The webinars are free. The workshops, there's a nominal cost. But so you can keep learning, keep growing, and keep making yourself think. I want to challenge you because probably a lot of what I said today, hopefully, was not new, right? You've heard this stuff before. It's not, rocket science. It's not earth-shattering news. Maybe there's some things that you didn't know, and that's great. But if a lot of the things you knew, are you doing them? Because knowing something and doing something are two completely different things. And so that's a huge takeaway, is that just because you know it doesn't mean you're doing it. And so coming to webinars like this helps refresh your memory on things you already knew. And you're like, oh, yeah, I knew that. Why am I not doing that? Or, ooh, I could do that better. I know there's opportunities there. So a lot of the reasons to come to these sorts of events isn't to teach you things you didn't know, even though hopefully you will learn some things you didn't know. But more importantly, it's to refocus you on the things you know that you need to do and make sure you put the time and energy in where you're going to get the most value. So please come to our webinars and workshops. Also, I want to give you some free offers. So I'm going to leave this up on the screen here. If you want a business valuation, we offer those at no charge. A DISC assessment is a personality profile to help you understand your strengths and weaknesses. Really important to be the best leader you can is to know more about how you tick and what makes you strong and weak. We do free DISC assessments. Happy to get set up a meeting for someone for a coaching session. Or if you guys have meetings that are not working, I would be happy to come to one of your existing meetings and give you any feedback. We attend so many companies' meetings and we get to understand best practices and what works and doesn't work and how agendas should flow. So if your meetings are not working the way you want them to, you can invite us to come to one of your meetings. So these are all the free offers we give folks who have come to the end of this webinar. See, great job for making it to the end because you get the free offer. And we'd like you to take advantage of it. So please, please, please reach out to us for a free offer and come to our webinars and our workshops and learn more so we can help you. And I will leave you saying that I am Warren Sager with Assured Strategy, and I appreciate your time. And if there's anything I or any of the coaches here at Assured Strategy can do, we're here to help. And thank you for coming.